Hello guys and welcome to my new video. So basically 7.25 is only in basically a couple of weeks, and I've been getting this question a lot about how good are Resto Druids in 7.25. So I've done the first 4 bosses in Tomb of Sargeras and PTR. Again, PTR testing is only about an hour, so I've got to play at least like 2 minutes into each boss, try out some of the talents, try out some of the new legendaries, but still, at this point, it's all guesswork about how good Resto Druids are going to be. There's a lot of discussion in the forums. A lot of discussion in the forums it does not mean it's going to be like that. Like, I mean, at the start of the expansion, everyone was predicting Master is going to be really bad, and Master is actually quite good for Resto Druid. So it's still guesswork, but I'm doing this video basically to have a little overview of what has changed for Resto Druids, the good, the bad, and the difference in playstyle. I made a different video previously about Resto Druid game style with the Soul of the Archdruid legendary ring and the tier 24 set and how it's going to affect it. Few things have changed for me, but first I want to kind of go from the beginning. So tier 19 versus tier 20. A lot of people will tell you that first of all, tier 19 is the easiest tier set you're ever gonna get. It does not affect your playstyle at all. Some people might say it's good, some people might say it's bad. I consider Resto Druids to be not a very difficult healing spec to play, and I actually favor any changes towards in difficulty in game mechanics. That's just me personally, and I'm not saying that the changes in 7.25 are good game mechanic changes. I'm just saying it's something different. So a change for me right now is something positive. Maybe a couple of weeks into the patch, I'll be like, this is terrible. I wish they would bring back the tier 19 and things like that. But right now, any changes seem to be exciting. So it's probably going to be overly positive. But that's just because I like change and I enjoy change. And like I said, in a couple of weeks, I could be feeling way different about this. But like I said, tier 19... 4 set for Resto Druids, basically tier 2 set gave you free mastery with rejuvenation, 4 set just gave you free rejuvenation. You don't even need to worry about it, you don't need to track it, you don't have to have a tell me when or a week or a setup to say when it procs or anything like that. It really doesn't matter, you just play and see the numbers go up. Now the tier 20 2 set and 4 set are very different. Tier 22 set, which like I mentioned in a lot of my videos, reduces your swiftman cooldown based on how low you heal the target. This is again a skill based heal. This is going to go by itself. 2 set is terrible, so that's the biggest issue right now. 2 set, it does not give you, like, it's a minimal HPS increase, unlike the 2 set tier 19, which gave you 4000 master every time you Wild Growth, which was really good both for raid and 5-man scenarios, which made it basically one of the best 2 sets to have in raids and 5-mans. Now the 2 set for tier 20 is actually pretty bad by itself, and there's no way you're going to be one of the healers who says, I need my 2 set because it's going to increase my healing by blah blah blah. It's irrelevant to have the 2 set at the moment, except if you have Soul of the Forest legendary ring, basically, which gives you Soul of the Forest talent for free. Now this makes your 2 set much better to have, but at the moment I'm not sure how the Soul of the Forest, how the Soul of the Archdruid legendary ring is going to be obtained. Some people were saying that it's going to be obtained through the doing order class hall quests, so it's not going to be RNG. A lot of people also predicting that it's going to not going to count towards the 2 legendaries. This is actually really big on how they're going to change. This is actually a really big decision for Restoration Druids, because first of all, if it's going to be RNG again, if it's going to take you a month to get it, along those lines, a month to get it, your 2 set tier 20 is going to be terrible without it. With Soul of the Forest ring, your 2 set is going to be much better, because every time you swiftmend, if you swiftmend a low person target, you get a cooldown on your swiftmend, you get an additional, or you get more Soul of the Forest buffs. You apply Soul of the Forest by just basically swift mending and then wild guarding, because wild guard is the best thing to use after swift mending with Soul of the Forest. But again, if you don't get it through the order hall, if you don't get it like straight away, 2 set is not looking good for you at all. And again, I can't even say that Soul of the Forest ring is going to be really good. I mean, for my testing, Wild Growth was like my first heal, but that's only 2 minutes into the fight, and you have to account for the lag. The lag is really big on PTR, which makes your rejuvenations take actually quite a while to apply. So it's still not fully known. I actually quite like Soul of the Forest ring, so I would actually rank it between the top 3 legendaries, but that's only from the minimal testing that I did, and I would need to have much more uptime with it. But I would say it's going to be one of the top legendaries. But what I meant, so like I said about the tier sets, straight up tier 20 is not as good as tier 19, because you have to work into mechanics much more. Like I said, the tier 24 set is going to be increases efflorescence healing after you Swiftmend by 100% for like 15 seconds. It's been nerfed a bit. It used to be like 400. It's been nerfed by quite a lot, but it's still very reliant. The healing, the mathematics have been done. It is equivalent to something like 3 to 4 to maybe even more % healing. Like, I mean, if you can get full, if you get a max output from the tier set, it can be as good as tier 19. But the biggest issue here is that it requires stacking, and it requires groups to be stacked. So it's going to be very, very highly dependent on each of the bosses that you do. Now, from the first 4 bosses that I did, there was somewhat stacked fights, and I could see that it could be like for some of the fights. I think it was Sisters of the Moon. The whole raid was basically stacked for a lot of the fight, and Efflorescence was healing for like 15%. So it can be very, very, very good, and it can be decent to bad. So that's the biggest issue right now. Tier 19 is a definite increase no matter what you do. Tier 20 can be a very good increase, or it can be a very bad increase. Overall, tier 20 is going to favor a much more mechanical game style, where you're actually going to have to make sure you Swiftmend the lowest target possible, and then you have to make sure that your efflorescence is down somewhere where people are standing. If it's not, you're probably gonna have to recast it, even though you're gonna lose a lot of mana. Even if it's like in the first 1 second of efflorescence, you're probably still gonna have to recast it to make sure your HPS keeps up, because efflorescence could theoretically become one of your best heals. So with that, and also if you have the Soul of the Forest ring, once you Swiftmend, you need to make sure efflorescence is down in the right position. You need to make sure that within the next 14 seconds, which I believe is how long the Soul of the Forest buff lasts, within the next 14 seconds, you can get a nice Wild Growth cast with a lot of people getting hit, which is also very important for your Wild Growth to heal, and also very important to keep people alive. Now, I've seen Wild Growth to hit for quite a lot with Soul of the Forest, and I was quite excited about it. Now, I also talked about Prosperity Talent, which gives you 2 charges of Swiftmend and reduces cooldown by 3 seconds, which actually is, from further testing, is really not that great, considering it doesn't really give you 2 charges. It gives you 2 charges at the very start. If you use up those 2 charges within, what, 20 seconds or something less than that, only one of your charges is going to have the reduced cooldown. Only one of your charges is going to tick down from like 30 seconds, 29, 20. Your secondary charge is still going to be there doing nothing. So the only reason to actually use Prosperity is basically if you don't use Swiftmend within like 30 to 40 seconds. If you actually want to hold off and have 2 charges. Because once your first Swiftmend cooldown is reduced to 0, it's basically up. The second Swiftmend charge is getting its cooldown ticking down. And I would definitely not recommend for you to hold Swiftmend, especially if you have Soul of the Forest, especially if you have the tier 24 set, because you kind of almost want to use them on cooldown to get constant HPS increase, considering it seems like a lot of the fights in Tomb of Sargeras seem to have a lot of AoE damage and things like that. So I really don't feel that Prosperity, I feel Prosperity is kind of broken. It also reduces the cooldown by 3 seconds of Swiftmend. But your tier 22 set reduces the cooldown by like 40% of Swiftmend if you use someone on the lowest target, which kinda does not work with lowering 40% of 20 seconds, 27 seconds, or 40% of 30 seconds. There's very minimal reduction there. It does not work with Prosperity at all. So unless he actually legitimately gives you 2 charges, where both of the charges get reductions at the same time, instead of just one being up at a time, prosperity is still probably not going to be better than scenario ward. I still feel scenario ward is going to be better, and that's going to be a big, huge kind of nerf if you say to Resto Druids, because having 2 prosperities would be so good. It would work so well with Soul of the Forest, and I feel it would work so well with the tier 24 set. Your FRSs will hit for much more. You'll have 2 Swiftmans to use whatever you want, basically, like, you know, within the time period. Right now, with 1 Swiftman, the game style seems to be very kind of, should I not cast Swiftman? Because maybe there's gonna be more damage later on, and if you cast Swiftman, you have to cast Wild Growth. And maybe you missed that point, so you cast Wild Growth just to have it cast with extra buff, and then you're like, okay, Swiftman has 10-second cooldown, Wild Growth is up. Do I wait 10 seconds and not cast Wild Growth during this moderate damage period, and rather just wait for the increased Swiftman? I'm pretty sure you're better off casting Wild Growth without the Swiftman. There's going to be a lot of these scenarios in your head where you're like, should I hold off casting? Should I hold off healing? Just so I can get a bigger buff. And I don't know if that's a good way of going. I feel if they really change prosperity, it would be much more fun. I honestly feel it would be much more fun with the Legendary Ring and with the tier 24 set. So, right now I feel the tier 24 set, the tier 20 set in itself. The tier 24 set is okay, it's not bad. The tier 22 set is pretty bad. It really doesn't compare to tier 19. It introduces a harder gameplay, which is more rewarding for certain fights. I agree with this statement 100%. I feel that if you really optimize your Swiftmans and your Soul of the Forest, if you actually end up using Soul of the Forest Legendary, you could get some really nice numbers. But it would require a lot more effort than it requires you right now, because right now Resto Druids requires 0%. And a lot of people are saying, especially considering there's a nerf to cultivation. Nerf cultivation does not mean that cultivation is no longer going to be used, because we only use cultivation for the hot, and I still feel cultivation is going to be the go-to talent here. But like I said, a lot of people are saying, oh, this 4 set is terrible, tier 24 set is terrible. Fluorescence only does like 3% of my healing. And of course it's going to, if you look at the top ranking Resto Druids, the shoulders right now are inflating numbers like crazy. Your rejuvenation can be, like, I remember my rejuvenation was like 25 to 30%. With shoulders it can go from 30 to 40% of your healing. And everything else obviously is going to go down. So a lot of people who are saying that Fluorescence does so little healing, it won't do this little healing in Tomb of Sargeras, because shoulders are going to be nerfed. Your numbers are no longer going to be inflated. The golden trait, Deep Rooted, is actually probably going to proc much more. A lot of, like, I made a video about it. We got the golden trait during basically farming period, and everyone had super high gear, like 4 million HP. And they weren't taking that much damage. They did not go down that low. It's going to change. Deep Rooted could technically really save Druids if people really go down, really, like, if it's going to be really heavy AoE damage, which is yet to be seen. Because I'm not sure how they're going to change the PTO numbers. But Deep Rooted could work a lot better than what it is now. And Fluorescence is definitely going to heal for more without even the 4 set. Because you're not going to have the shoulders, and rejuvenation is not going to be the inflated spell that it is right now. It's still going to be the best, but it's not going to be the same extent. So I feel that Resto Druids will, it's going to be the time where you're going to have to play mechanically better, not mechanically better, but predict damage patterns better, and actually just kind of like really optimize Swiftman usage if you end up using the Soul of the Forest, Ring, and the tier 24 set. You're gonna have to really optimize when you use Swiftman. Of course, not a lot of healers are gonna have the tier 24 set in the first couple of probably month or something when Tomb of Sargeras comes out. So Resto Druids and all the other healers, because it depends on what kind of guild you are, but it depends what kind of progression guild you are. Healers usually get their tiers one of the last people. So unless you're really lucky with coining and things like that, you're not really, no healer is gonna actually use the 4 set. And especially for druids, you don't really want to go for the 2 set yet, unless you get the Soul of the Forest ring. So it's going to be kind of, at the very start, it's going to be kind of the same kind of healing, except for the shoulder nerf, which is still not going to be a crazy. I still don't feel it's going to be a crazy big deal, because if there's constant AoE damage, if there's more people taking damage, shoulders are not going to be as good, because shoulders assume that people are going to kind of gotta get topped up. People are gonna go for logs. People are gonna try to snipe. They actually like their anti-sniping tool for Resto Druid. So I don't feel shoulders are gonna be that big of a nerf. For the best legendaries, I get this question asked a lot. What's the best legendary for 7.25? And definitely Valence is probably going to be #1 for all the healers out there, unless it gets like a stealth nerf or something. I doubt it's not gonna happen. But Valence is definitely what you want to have right now, especially considering the 7.25 trinkets are really not that amazing. The second legendary that you're probably gonna try, like, I mean, if you're progressing on a hard fight and you don't know the mechanics, you don't know what's going on, you don't know if you're gonna die, you take unnecessary damage, I honestly still feel Preda's legendary neck is still going to be very good, just because of that shield. At the end of the day, a dead healer provides 0 HPS. So I'm actually battling. I actually have this decision in my head whether I should be using Predus in the first couple of weeks over something like, let's say, Soul of the Forest ring, if you get it straight away. Or the Tearstone of Balloon, the other legendary ring that we have. That's also pretty decent for heavy AoE fights. Or even things like the legendary belt. The legendary belt can do so much healing on fights where tanks take a lot of damage. Now, there's also another problem that you don't know if the tank's going to be taking a lot of damage in certain fights. You don't know if there's going to be someone who gets like a big massive debuff that needs to be required healing. You might have a general idea, but I think the legendary belt is definitely not to be dismissed. I honestly feel it's not going to be dismissed. I feel its value is going to degrade when people get the Kil'jaeden's trinket. Kil'jaeden's trinket applies basically a hot on 2 targets, which most likely is going to be tanks. And it gives a 2-minute hot on them. And if they drop below 35%, it gives them a shield. So I feel if a lot of healers get that, they just put it on their tanks. And your waste legendary, which increases light bloom healing and the bloom effect and things like that, is not going to be doing as much healing with those trinkets. But I really feel it's between Valence, Predus, Waste, and the Soul of the Forest ring. I do not feel that new Helm, the Chameleon Song, is actually even close to relevant right now, unless it's going to be changed, of course. So these have been my kind of thoughts about Resto Druids. I feel that Resto Druids are still going to be quite strong. I still feel like right now Resto Druids are the top tier no matter what. I feel that a lot of the fights where people look at Warcraft logs and they say, "Oh, look at Resto Druids, they're the top at there." I feel the shoulders are a lot to blame for this. I feel Resto Druids can do really well solo healing content. I think Resto Druids could solo heal like mythic content very easily because of how much synergy rejuvenation has with mastery, deep rooted, and things like the cultivation procs and spring blossom and germination with the shoulders, the tier 19-4 set procking rejuvenations, like rejuvenation when the person goes below 25%, deep rooted kicks in, the rejuvenation gets applied, the shoulders extended. The synergy is unbelievable for Restoration Druids right now. I don't think any other healer has this kind of synergy. This is one of the reasons why it's really hard to calculate legendary values for things like shoulders, because there's so many moving parts when you need to consider rejuvenation and Resto Druids. So I really feel like Resto Druid value has been inflated by the shoulders, by the people willing to go for high logs. I believe the Resto Druid is probably the best solo healing healer in the game. They could solo heal content for a lot of the parts because they're not gonna outsnipe themselves, if you know what I mean. While other people can actually, like, it's going to be different for something like a holy priest. But that's what I think. That's why I think the Druids are still gonna be in a good position. They're probably gonna be not the very top tier. I feel they're gonna be brought down. I feel they might be somewhere in the middle pack, Resto Druids. But I feel that people who are not optimizing completely, because it's going to be way mechanically heavier and harder to play Resto Druid. I feel the people who don't optimize, they're probably going to be mid tier, and I feel the Druids are going to be going hardcore, optimizing Swiftmans and things like that. They can be top, which I find is perfectly fine, and I still feel Resto Druid is definitely going to be needed in the raid, and you still should get an invite over. Like, I mean, it depends how well you play and things like that. But it's not going to be as easy as it is right now. So 7.25 Resto Druids are going to be harder to play. You're going to have to maintain a fluorescence. My best advice for you is, if you're having problems with putting down a fluorescence right now, if you don't find the right positions for it, practice it now. Practice it now. Practice getting a good Swiftman people who are low and things like that. And because that's going to be your game style in 7.25, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, if you don't like this kind of game style, it's possible maybe to re-roll. But I really think Resto Druids are going to be fine. The really optimized Resto Druids are going to do really well. And everyone else who's not really optimizing and things like that, they're probably going to be in mid tier, which I think is the right way. But I'm not sure if the new gameplay is going to be that great. Time is gonna tell. But hopefully this has been a very long video. I hope it was somewhat educational. Please leave a comment below on how you feel about this. What are your thoughts on 7.25? It's only coming out in a couple of weeks. Let me know how you feel about Restoration Druid, and thank you for watching this video.